Why should the men have to pay towards single women choosing to be single? What's going on, guys? Beast Mode Smooth back with another video. All right, so today we're going to be taking a look at a video titled Lives of Unmarried Women in Their 30s and 40s. This video is pretty interesting because, you know, where the women are from, they're from Korea. So it's interesting to see how the dynamic of North American women, it's similar to the women in Korea. So we're going to take a look, see what's going on. So here we go.
In Korea, of the 7.8 million women in their 30s and 40s, 17.176% or 1.38 million are single. Now, in the 21st century, marriage is no longer a necessity, but rather an option, and many women choose to remain single. Yet, there is not enough social security for them, creating a blind spot of the structural system. Let's learn more about the issue and what needs to be done to improve the current conditions. Chung Eun-mi is a 41-year-old florist who dreamed of becoming a good wife and wise mother as a child. Like the majority of people, she thought she had to get married and form a family when she was younger. But her perspective has changed a lot.
I gained a genuine passion and desire for my career in my early 30s. Therefore, I naturally focused more on my work than romantic relationships.
All right, so let's dissect this for a moment. She had dreams and aspirations of becoming a wife and having a family, and only in her early 30s did she start to have career dreams, I guess. So it seems like she simply couldn't get a man, start a family, so then she decided to ultimately get into her career. I mean, that's what I'm gathering. Maybe you guys can comment below and let me know what you guys think. So it seems like now she's just focused on her career because she couldn't ultimately get what she really wanted in life. But let's continue.
And time passed very quickly.
Chung is not the only one who chooses to remain unmarried. Many women in their 30s and 40s do too. According to the National Statistical Office, 1,384,047 women in their 30s and 40s were single as of 2015.
So it's interesting to see that the single women dynamic has almost quadrupled, if not more, in the span of, what, 20 years, which is pretty alarming. But it goes to show that it's not just North America. There's other different parts of the world where the, you know, marriage and more single women are on the rise. So it's interesting to see that, but let's continue.
And that figure is more than twice that of 10 years ago. The drastic jump largely resulted from women's increased labor force participation. Also, Korea remains a patriarchal society.
Marriage is not only a union of two lovers, but of families, which I found very burdensome. I wasn't sure if I could take care of all the things that occur in my husband's family while pursuing my career.
Now that she wasn't able to get what she really wanted, now she's starting to justify why she couldn't get it. She's now saying, hey, I just wanted to focus on my career and it's gonna be a burden. But why could you not get what you wanted initially? Why is it? Like, that is the question that I'm curious, versus, you know, these smoke screens as to why she's now rationalizing it. But let's continue.
Currently, 40% of female workers have irregular jobs and earn about $1,500 per month on average. Indeed, the low income has a negative influence on housing stability.
The majority of single women live alone and the residential environments vary depending on economic status. Naturally, there are concerns about women being targets of sexual assault and other crimes, especially for those living in poorer areas, as it is clear that the number of violent crimes against women has been increasing recently.
I'm pretty sure there were men out there that were interested in her, and maybe she just frankly didn't give them the time of day. And the fact that now she's choosing to focus more on her career and not focus on, getting married, starting a family, and having two incomes in the household, she's now saying, oh, now I live in a poverty area and it's dangerous for me. I mean, ultimately, that's what you decided on. And the fact that you're now complaining about it, or just making this documentary saying, hey, this is the challenges that I'm facing. I mean, you chose that. At the end of the day, you chose that life, right? Every action has a reaction. It has a consequence in life. And these are your consequences. But let's continue.
A recent survey conducted by the Seoul Metropolitan Government on women in their 40s and 50s living alone, only 36.9% responded that they were preparing for old age. Also, 81.2% of them answered that they were unable to prepare for their later years because they couldn't afford to do so. But there's barely any governmental support for them.
Why should the government be responsible for your actions? Why should taxpayers have to pay and subsidize you for your decisions? Why should the very men, aka taxpayers, why should the men have to pay towards single women choosing to be single? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Everything that women try to stray away from in regards to men, a man is always in the equation. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a taxpayer, if it's, a woman having a baby, if it's civilization, if it's construction, building roads, condos, any physical manual labor that women ultimately benefit from, it always comes back to a man. So it's interesting to see that, but let's continue.
39-year-old Kim Hyun-ju works for the Cooperative Society of an animal hospital in Seoul. And she mentioned that Korean single women are stuck in the blind spot of social welfare. More than anything, the biggest fear comes from the fact that there are many structural limits if they suffer from any diseases.
See, and this is what Kevin Samuels was talking about. These women wait too long, bury themselves in their career, and ultimately they end up getting dogs and cats. And now it seems like she's valuing pets more than an actual man. And again, according to the stats and the pie chart that they were showing, majority of these single women can't afford retirement. They can't afford to stop working, right? Ultimately, they need to rely on the taxpayers, or hoping to rely on the taxpayers to subsidize their cost of living. But let's continue.
If I needed medical surgery, only my direct family members are eligible to sign the consent form. I currently live with my friend, who is single as well, but she would not be eligible to sign the form, even if my life depended on it.
As a cat owner, Kim formed a gathering of fellow single women with animal companions.
I mean, isn't this sad? You have a bunch of single, lonely cat women starting a club of single women just sitting around talking about how single and depressed their lives are. Was it worth forgetting about men, forgetting about a family, forgetting about a dynamic where you could retire, forgetting about somebody that can help you around the household, forgetting about relying on somebody or building a relationship with somebody or building a life with somebody? You threw that all away to sit with cats and other single lonely women complaining about why they can't afford cost of living. What are they gonna do in the next 20 years when they can't work because their body just simply gave out? Was it worth it? You know what I mean? Like was it worth it at the end of the day? Probably not. But let's continue.
The best thing about this gathering is that they have good neighbors to rely on in times of emergency, who also have the same interest and concerns.
There are certain hardships we experience because we chose to remain unmarried. We share those things, relate to one another, and get healed along the way.
Outside the welfare system, single women have to find their own means to secure their futures, and they're calling on a change in the family-centered social policies.
Because the tax system, welfare policies, and even the medical insurance system are designed for families, they alienate unmarried women and single-person households.
In life, men have to be accountable for their actions. They got to be accountable for the decisions that they make. And women shouldn't be any different. If you chose to be single, that's your choice, right? Women are always talking about having their rights, free rights, and being liberated and all this stuff. All right, well, guess what? You being liberated, this is the result of that. And now you want to result to the government, like the government giving you money? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But let's continue.
Therefore, our society needs to find ways to embrace and support them rather than merely trying to treat the symptoms.
For marriage to be truly an option for both genders, the general perception towards singles should be transformed along with new practical policies to meet their needs.
All right, guys, so I'm going to end the video here. I mean, it's interesting to see that other countries are experiencing the same thing. Men in different countries are ultimately facing the same obstacles. And it's interesting that these women want the government and the very men that they're running from to ultimately pay and subsidize their cost of living. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end this video. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.